Good day. Welcome to another YAS presentation. YAS, the YMC Education Series, is free and open to the public. We encourage you to invite your friends and family and share in all this information we learn. We host about 6 to 8 of these a month, varying in all types of different topics. This topic will last about 40 minutes today. We're going to cut a little bit earlier than we normally do, but Matt will be taking questions, I think pretty much throughout, if I remember this talk. But if you do have any questions and you don't want to raise your hand or ask the question, you can always put it in the chat box and I'll be able to make sure that Matt addresses that. Thank you again for joining us today. I would like to introduce Matt Margolis, our favorite lawyer, who likes free advice. Free legal advice doesn't come around too often, maybe twice a year for YS, but attorney Matt Margolis will be answering some questions today. Just make sure you're comfortable with the crowd and all of us on there. And questions will be related to wills, trust, powers of attorney, special needs trust, Medicaid. I'm sure people have some questions. So we're going to open this up to Matt. Welcome, Matt.
Thanks, Pam. Hey, everybody. Good morning. Pam said, my name is Matt Margolis. Give you like the 1 minute snapshot on me. My partner, Lauren Weldon, and I have a elder law and estate planning practice in downtown Park Ridge, and we help people of all ages and all sorts of families with their estate planning needs. So we do powers of attorneys, wills, trusts, special needs trust, asset protection work. And we do that for 18-year-olds going off to college, all the way up to clients in their 90s and hundreds that just need some estate planning work. On the elder law side, we've got a really strong focus on helping people protect assets and helping them apply for Medicaid. There's also a very particular benefit through the VA that we help people apply for that will help pay for long-term care needs. So yeah, here I am. So today is Q&A. I have zero agenda. And as Pam mentioned, we've got about 40 minutes. Normally I go until 10:15. I've got a personal matter that came up today, so I've got to cut out about 9:55 to be safe. But there's 4 attendees. You've got almost 35 minutes, and I'm going to stop talking and open it up to any questions that you guys have.
Pam, do you want us to put our questions in writing, or do we just talk?
Just talk to Matt.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to be first necessarily, but I will if no one else wants.
Hey, go ahead, Audrey.
So, hi, Matt. And Matt and Pam, thank you so much for doing this. It's really appreciated, very timely. I know a little bit about Medicaid, the idea that Medicaid is not a benefit, it's a loan, is what I've been reading about. The person I take care of is my father. Mm-hmm. I'm concerned about his situation. He's 95 years old. So a couple questions related to that, Matt. I am taking care of him seriously, legitimately taking care of him. I had questions about the personal services contract or personal services agreement. I'm not sure if there's one name for that.
We can call it anything we want. Yeah.
Right.
I know what you're talking about.
Is that considered a valid means of drawing down the assets that will be recognized by Medicaid should we need to apply for Medicaid at some time in the future?
Yeah, great question. Is your name Audrey? I know that your screen says Audrey. Okay.
Yes.
Sometimes I know people use their,
right.
daughters,
No,
sons' computers.
That's me. That's me. Thank you. Okay.
So Medicaid, to your statement earlier, and I'm going to be very brief, it is really a benefit. In some cases, there are some forms of Medicaid that can be looked at as a loan where, when somebody passes away, if there's, money left in their trust, or if they have, depending on their circumstances, there could be a payback to the state. But right. For the vast majority of people, and I've been helping people with Medicaid applications for over 11 years now. And really, if we're talking about Medicaid, especially Medicaid where we're applying in a nursing home or a supportive living facility, not necessarily Medicaid that just somebody's receiving while living in their own home, more of like a health insurance type Medicaid. But the long-term care Medicaid, I mean, I've had very few clients ever have to pay anything back, just so you know. I mean, I'm talking less than 5%. And those would be like very particular circumstances. 99 out of 100 times, there's no payback to the state for that type of Medicaid, just so you know. I'm not going to say that there aren't some situations that might be a little bit different, but vast majority of the time, there will be no payback to the state. As far as the personal services contract goes, and we can call it anything we want. In our office, we refer to them as caregiver agreements, but personal service contract, caregiver agreement, whatever we want to call it. It's a totally legitimate way for somebody, for a potential Medicaid applicant to spend money. Okay, so Medicaid, when we apply for Medicaid, just so everybody's aware, to give everybody a little bit of context here, if I go to apply for Medicaid in a nursing home or a supportive living facility, those are the two types of places in Illinois that will accept Medicaid to pay for my long-term care. If I go to apply for Medicaid, Medicaid is going to want to see 5 years of my financial history. Okay, they're going to want to see 60 months of my bank statements, 60 months of my brokerage statements at Wells Fargo. What they're looking for is, did I give any money away? Okay, did I, using Medicaid's terminology, did I make any, transfers for less than fair market value? Okay, and so Medicaid doesn't care if I just bought a $4,000 flat screen TV. Medicaid doesn't care that I have really expensive taste in clothing. Medicaid cares that I wrote my daughter Audrey a check for $10,000 just for the sake of it. Okay, Medicaid does care about that. Okay, Medicaid would care if I sold my car that's worth $10,000 to my daughter Audrey for $1,000, right? Because I'm basically giving her $9,000, right? And so that's where we use the term transfer for less than fair market value. Okay, so if we look at the Medicaid policy, they say that, they don't say gifts are not allowed, they say transfers for less than fair market value are not allowed. By virtue of that statement, anything that's a gift is not allowed. But then again, also something like me selling my lake house in Wisconsin that's worth $150,000 to my son for $5,000, well, that would be a $145,000 gift. So, all right, just wanted to give a little bit of context to everybody here before I answered your question, Audrey, because I think it's important. And so when we look at the personal services contract, Medicaid has no problem if I'm paying anybody in the world, caregiver, granddaughter, daughter, son, friend. Medicaid doesn't care that I pay any of those people to help take care of me, whether they're providing care, whether I'm paying them to go grocery shopping for me, run errands for me, all of these different things. What Medicaid cares about is that it's in writing. They want to see some sort of contract in writing signed by me, the Medicaid applicant, and the person who's providing those services, whether it's my son or my daughter or my grandchild or Maggie who lives down the street, who's just a nice person that's willing to help. They want to see a contract. Okay, without a contract, and when I go to apply, if I go to apply for Medicaid and there's no contract in place, and Medicaid just sees that I was writing all these checks to Audrey, okay, and it's especially an uphill battle when it's a relative versus some third party.
Right.
Medicaid is going to say you were just gifting your daughter all this money. And so we really want to make sure there's a contract signed, and the contract needs to be prospective, meaning I can't sign a contract today that is considering services that were provided over the last 2 years.
Okay.
Now, I tell clients all the time, I'm like, hey, I get what happened here, right? I don't expect everybody in the world to have like the Medicaid policy understood 100%. I don't expect anybody to even have any idea about Medicaid unless they go seek the advice from a lawyer or they a social worker, they get some knowledge about it. But here's the thing, right? So we have cases where people have come to us and they've been paying, mom or dad has been paying them for the last year, or has been paying this caregiver, like a true third-party caregiver that's not related, but they've been paying them without a contract. And so our advice always is, listen, we can't go back and undo what's already happened. But what we can do is we can put a contract together today
Right.
that would take care of everything moving forward. And then
Mhm.
ideally, if we have to apply for Medicaid at some point, ideally we can make a case to the state of Illinois if they were to have an issue and say, listen, yeah, we get that there was no contract in place for the services that took place from 2021 to 2022, but you can see that we signed a contract in 2022 with the same person. And so can we just can we agree that clearly we had no idea that we needed a contract, we got one in place?
Correct.
And ideally they will buy that argument. They may not. They may not. The state, a lot of times it depends on the caseworker at the state that we're working with. But yes, there should be a contract.
Okay.
To be as specific as we can. I mean, it can be broad in the sense of services. Okay.
Okay.
So it can be very broad in the sense of services because, there might be little things that pop up here and there. So when we help clients with these caregiver contracts, very broad, right? Talks about running errands, doing household chores, cooking meals, helping them, get dressed, go to the bathroom, whatever it might be. It's really all encompassing. I've had clients say, well, some of these things don't apply. I'm like, you know what? I'd rather leave it in there. There's no harm in leaving all these extra services in there, because what if you do them at some point? So, but the contract should be specific in the sense of, how much are we paying this person? Are we paying them hourly? And if we're going to pay them hourly, then we need to keep track of the hours. And now there needs to be a separate spreadsheet, that's being put together that shows the amount of hours that are being worked every day. Are we paying a daily amount? Or are we agreeing that, listen, it's so hard to keep track of the hours because I might be sitting there and watching TV with my dad for an hour or two, and I'm not really taking care of him necessarily, but things come up and it's sort of like a 24-hour type of thing. So we might agree on, okay, well, maybe based on what you're doing, it doesn't seem like an hourly model should work. Maybe we should just figure out some sort of daily amount. And so again, there's just different things that we want to consider. There's also certain amounts that we kind of keep in mind where, we tend to, at least we tend to tell clients, especially when an adult son or daughter or any kind of relative is being paid, which we tend to be a little more conservative. We look at the going rate. If our client had hired some sort of caregiving company and what that company would charge, and we tend to kind of agree on a rate that would be lower than what a company would charge. So I hope that helps. If there's other, if that didn't answer everything, Audrey, let me know.
It does sound like, though, it needs to be a formal contract. Would you recommend, having an attorney do that contract, or is it something I can use a template for and fill it out?
I don't want to say that an attorney, it's one of those things where I don't want to say that an attorney has to help you with it.
Right.
Could you, so here's, I guess I want to give you like the best answer possible. Could you probably figure it out on your own? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Are the stakes high enough that it's worth it to potentially hire a lawyer? Probably.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
So
yeah. That
and whether that's me or somebody else, but yeah, I probably recommend. Clients ask me the same thing when it comes to filling out power of attorney documents, right? Oh, I can just print them online, right? You can, but you risk not doing it the right way. You risk not signing it the right way.
Right.
You risk you not having the most up-to-date form, or there not being the right language in there. Are these risks you want to take? Because yes, you can save a couple $100 by not hiring a lawyer to put a contract together, by not hiring a lawyer to help you with power of attorney documents. But the negative consequences of doing these things wrong will far exceed the money that you saved by doing it on your own, right? And that's just, and we know that with most things in life.
Correct. I want to, please move on to some other questions. I don't want to monopolize the meeting. And if I don't get a chance to say so later, thank you. And I hope you're feeling perfectly well very soon.
Oh, thank you. I am. It's a little congested, but I'm fine. I'm totally fine. Thank you, Audrey.
And honestly, if you have these questions, I'm sure someone else has these questions. So
right.
it's really good. Yeah. Does anyone
Yeah.
else have another question?
Yeah.
This is
Margie?
Margie.
Hey, Margie.
Also, in the vein of this topic of family caregivers, so many of them, and I'm a caregiver support group facilitator, so I hear this a lot. Most of them, they are doing it out of love and they don't want or expect any compensation. But I'm wondering if it would be advised that if someone looks like they are going to be on Medicaid at some point, that they don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars, is it a wise decision that even if you want to do it out of love, maybe you should just have that some of that money go to one of these contracts so that it's going towards the spend down? And then if the family member wants to later on, when the person is Medicaid approved and in a nursing home, they can just maybe, make life more cheerful with the money that was used.
So Margie, you hit the nail on the head. So there, I do find, and I'd say the clients that come to us where we put together these caregiver agreements, it's sort of 50-50. So, some for sure come to us and, we've got adult children that have put their life on hold and they're doing it out of love, but
Yeah.
they also, listen, they've left their job. They're taking a leave of absence from their job and they might not go back to that job. And so, so for some, it's definitely a way to say, listen, I need to survive and this money will help. Then there is sort of the other 50% where we're doing it exactly like what you just mentioned. The idea is, we know that we see the writing on the wall. Mom or dad I'll only be able to care for mom and dad for a certain period of time until I know for sure that what they need help with will be more than what I can provide. And they will need to go into a nursing home and we will need to apply for Medicaid because, while mom and dad might have 60 grand,
That's
at
not going
$10,000
very
a month,
far.
that money's going to go. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we do it. And we'll say, and a lot of times it'll be, the reason will be, hey, listen, this is actually a very legitimate way to set some money aside for the individual that might be applying for Medicaid, because we can put a contract together. They are providing care. And, the son or daughter is just going to kind of hold on to that money and knowing that, hey, mom ends up applying for Medicaid. We know that mom's going to be limited to $2,000 in her name. And so I'll have all this money that's kind of been saved on the side to help, buy mom certain food that she likes or buy her some clothes that she needs or get her a new TV for her room or just some of the little things that, she wouldn't otherwise have enough money to pay for. And it's also nice, even for adult children that have the means to support their parents, it's nice that the individual can use their own money for these things, basically, right? So yeah, Margie, you hit the nail on the head.
Got it.
Very often that we are doing these caregiver contracts really with that in mind.
Thank you.
Someone else have a question? Or another question?
This is Margie. Oh, go ahead. Someone else take a turn, but go ahead.
This is Pat, and I saw the program listed in the things to do section of the local newspaper. So I don't have any specific questions. I just was looking for general information, and I'm 75, so I'm looking for it for myself in the future. So I think any of the questions that other people have, I would find interesting because I don't really have anything specific that I have to ask.
Okay. Well, Pat, I appreciate you joining today, and I would suggest that you take a look at some of these other talks that I provide. I do a talk on the first Wednesday of every month at 9:15 through the Y in the same format. And so you'll see there's other topics that come up that are a lot more specific on, maybe it's asset protection, maybe it's powers of attorney, maybe it's wills and trusts, long-term care options. So, I would just suggest that if you are seriously looking for some information, I think that you might find these helpful. Not to toot my own horn, but it's a little bit of nice information that I think does go a long way. So yeah, thanks for attending today.
I will look at that, and thank you.
And Pam, are those available on the website? the Y
I'm
web?
just gonna toot Matt's
Okay,
horn.
good, good.
So,
All right.
yeah, so first of all, I would just want to say next month, and I'll do this at the end of the talk, but next month, Wednesday, July 6th at 9:15 a.m., we're doing Understanding Medicaid and How to Protect Assets Legally. So I like that legally part though. So it's learn how to strategically protect your assets while applying for Medicaid. So he has a bunch of these talks that he does throughout the year, but next month, it sounds like some people are talking about the Medicaid asset stuff. So that's something he'll talk about next month. All of these talks from the past are on our virtual website, on our podcast library via YouTube. So you can go back, years, at this, like over a year at this point, I think we have them on there. But I do like the live talk. So I've been on a lot of Matt's talk. I do like the live part because you get to kind of interact with Matt more, and pick his brain. And so, but there are the past ones that you can watch that are just like this. And I'll shut up now. And I think Margie, did you have another question?
Oh, I have a couple of questions, but I didn't want to hog anything. The other thing I wondered about, because I hear this a lot, is people that are trying to go into a nursing home. And it's one thing if they're in the hospital and and I'm talking about people that are going to be soon to be Medicaid. So if they're going into the hospital because they've had an accident and then they get the Medicare days, that gets them in the door and then they can start the whole application process. But for people that are going straight from their home into the nursing home, it seems to me that it's almost impossible. Can you shed any light on that?
Yeah, so it's a good comment to bring up, Margie. So to give a little, again, to just maybe give a little context there. So the way things work in Illinois is that if you have a medical event where it takes you to the hospital and you have 3 overnights at the hospital where you are considered inpatient status, okay, you cannot be observation. You could be in the hospital for 2 weeks, but as long as 3 of those nights are defined as inpatient status, and then you are discharged for rehab, which is typically done at a skilled nursing facility, then Medicare will kick in and cover some of the rehab, okay? And Medicare will cover the first 20 days, 100%. And then for potentially up to another 80 days after that, the first 20, Medicare will cover at 80%. And then ideally, you've got the individual has a Medicare supplement that will pick up the other 20%. If they have a Medicare Advantage plan, those can be a little wonky and that can cover some of those 80 days, but not all of them. And we're not going to go into the details of that, but that's something that you need to talk to whoever you bought your insurance from. You need to talk to them and make sure you understand how that supplement or Advantage plan works in the context of a rehab stay, because those Advantage plans do work differently. And there is more out of pocket that an individual will have with an Advantage plan, or most of them that I've seen. And so, yeah, I agree with Margie. In these cases where somebody leaves the hospital, they go to rehab, Medicare is paying for it, and then Medicare stops, they tend to have a little bit of an easier time than transitioning to Medicaid, assuming that they meet all the qualifications, because in a lot of cases, between what Medicare has paid and their supplement has paid, that nursing home might have just gotten, 2 months of more than full payment, because rehab, the average daily rate in Illinois for a nursing home is right around $250 to $300 a day, right? So about $8,500 to $9,500 a month is what I'm going to say is about the average monthly cost of a nursing home, skilled nursing facility. But when you're talking about rehab can be $400 to $600 a day, because you're getting all these additional services, right? PT, OT, et cetera. And so you're not just a long-term care resident at a nursing home where, they're taking care of you, but they're not doing a ton of extra services. In rehab, you've got a lot of services that are being provided. And so the nursing home over a 2-month period, they might be getting paid, $40,000, $40,000 from between Medicare and a supplement. And so they're going to be more willing in those cases where when Medicare is done paying to let that person apply for Medicaid. And also one more thing on this is that even though Medicare will pay up to 100 days, right? They'll pay 20 days, 100%, and then up to another 80 days after that at 80%. You are not guaranteed that, or an individual is not guaranteed 100 days. In fact, vast majority of the clients I've worked with over the last 11 years, I mean, vast majority, I can count on one hand how many clients have gotten a full 100 days that I've talked to. I know there's more out there. What happens in a lot of cases, day 43, the nursing home has a care meeting. They reach out to the family and they say, hey, listen, Matt has plateaued. He's not making any more progress. Either he's just not willing to make any more progress, he's just not willing to try, or he just can't. And so Medicare is going to still pay for the next 5 days. But after that, if you wanted to stay here, you got to pay privately, and it's going to be out of pocket starting then. So just something to keep in mind, okay? In the situations where somebody does not go to the nursing home, sort of through this like hospital Medicare path, it is much harder to just go into a nursing home and apply for Medicaid, which I think is what you're saying, Margie. So somebody, if I was single, applying for Medicaid in a nursing home, I can have no more than $2,000 in my name. Okay. If I'm married, then I can have $2,000 in my name. My wife or my spouse can have $109,560 in their name, plus a house, plus a car. I'm not going to go into all the details of this because it'll take us too long and I don't have that much time. We can go into all that. If you attend next month, I will cover all of this in a lot more detail, including discussing an update to Medicaid. Medicaid just recently increased the income limit for the spouse at home quite significantly. So if I'm down, let's say I'm a single person, I'm down to $2,000. I want to move into Glenview Terrace. And basically my goal is that I want to move in and apply for Medicaid immediately. Most places aren't going to like that. Because most places, they want, even though they take Medicaid, they want some private dollars from me first. They want me to be able to pay for 1 month or 2 months or 3 months or 6 months out of pocket. And then they're okay with me applying for Medicaid. But they do not want me coming in and applying for Medicaid immediately. They just don't. Some places will allow that, but it really depends on their vacancies. I mean, if they've got a ton of Medicaid beds open, which vast majority of places do not have, but if they had a number of Medicaid beds that were open and available, that might be different. They might actually let me go in there and apply for Medicaid immediately because they've got an open bed and it's a Medicaid bed and they would rather have somebody in there so that Medicaid can start paying them. But the vast majority of places do not tend to have open Medicaid beds. And so typically the reason why you have to pay for a couple months is because they need you to go into a room that's private, right? Because some places that take Medicaid, they have certain beds that are Medicaid approved and certain beds that are not, right? So they might have 300 available beds and there might be 100 that are dedicated to Medicaid and 200 that are private. And if the 100 Medicaid beds are full and I want to go in there, I can only go into a private room where I have to pay privately. That's just how it works. And so in some of these cases, when they do want somebody to pay privately for a couple months or 4 months or 6 months, it might truly be because they just don't have the capacity in a Medicaid bed. They don't have a Medicaid bed available. And, I hate to say, they're probably presuming that, hey, in 2 to 4 months, we might have somebody that's moves out of one of these Medicaid beds, to another place, if you catch my drift. And so, we might have a bed that opens for you. What we've seen over the years is that, more when it comes to the more, and you've got to take this comment with a grain of salt, when it comes to the more desirable nursing homes that take Medicaid, you should expect to pay for a couple months to 6 months. I tell every client that. I'm like, most are probably not going to require more than 6 months, but I want you to expect to have to pay for anywhere from a couple months to 6 months out of pocket before you will be able to apply for Medicaid.
Okay.
I think that's a pretty good rule of thumb. I know it's not what people will always see, and they might get lucky, and they might find a place that requires 9 months. But these are things to keep in mind, especially when we're caring for a loved one at home, because what we always see is that somebody calls us, right? And they're like, hey, I've been caring for my mom at home, or my mom's had caregivers at home for the last 6 years. My mom's down to $20,000 and she's still doing well enough. I think we need to look at a nursing home. And that's a tough spot to be in, right? Because mom might now only have the ability to pay for 1 or 2 months of a nursing home, and it may not be enough. So there's no steadfast rule, but I typically tell clients, when you're down to $50,000, $60,000, if your loved one is still at home and they've got a caregiver, they've got pretty consistent care, you got to start looking at places. And I even say typically if you're down to like 80 to 100,000, but not everybody even starts with that much money. You want to know your options, and you don't want to be stuck in a situation where you're acting in crisis and you're having to pick, from a few different nursing homes that would be not ideal at all for your loved one.
Mhm.
I hope that answers your question. I know I maybe went on a tangent there, Margie.
Thank you. So if I got somebody with $2 million, okay, no, this is a legit question. I got somebody with $2 million and nursing home is in their future. So they love each other, but hey, let's get a divorce, because then I don't have to, I could just spend one guy down to 2,000, the other person, I mean, you get what I'm saying? Because like you're going to protect more that way than with spousal impoverishment. So you can just, is that a plan? Like for people that don't have long-term care, but they have money? So you just get the divorce, and maybe one person gets 60-40, the healthier one gets the 60, the other one gets the 40, then you're only having to spend down, 800,000, which if you live a long time, you can spend that in long-term care.
Sure. So I would say that possibly, it's hard for me to give these situations, when it comes to divorce and Medicaid, the state is very much in most cases, let's put it this way, if the divorce is within 5 years, all I can say, if the divorce is happening and we think that post-divorce, one of the individuals will very likely have to apply for Medicaid within 5 years of the divorce, I'm pretty much telling every client, if you walk away from that, if the couple walks away from that divorce in anything but a 50-50 situation, you're prone to a lot of pushback from Medicaid, right? Because Medicaid's hip to the fact that they're elder law attorneys like us, and we don't tend to be that aggressive. We tend to be a little more conservative in our practice because we don't want there to be issues for our clients. But there was situations where attorneys were like, oh yeah, okay, we'll get you divorced. Husband who's likely going to be needing care in a nursing home in the next 6 months, he'll walk away with 15% of the estate, and his wife will walk away with 85%, and it'll all be good. And the state's like, hey, no way, wait a minute here, we see what you're doing, this is not okay. So I would say if we're thinking that the individual will need care within 5 years, I wouldn't recommend walking away from that divorce anything but 50-50. If there's enough money where we are way past the 5-year look back period, I still think you need to be working with it. You probably be best suited working with a family law attorney who has potentially had experience in the Medicaid realm, or at least getting an elder law attorney in the mix during that divorce to help provide some guidance.
So not really a plan.
Saying, Margie,
not really a plan.
Not really, but if there's enough time, it could be, for sure. I'm not saying it couldn't be.
Okay. Thank
you. It would be a case by case. It would be a case by case basis for sure.
Because in doing this group, I hear everything, and it's like I'm just floating some things, and just wanted to ask you. Sure.
I've heard it before too. I've heard the same question from an actual client before, so I get it.
And I've heard enough of Matt's talk that when you first started talking, I was like, he's going to mention something about the 5-year look back, because it's like they want to make sure that that there's no really like loops through all this stuff, I guess, or hoops or whatever through it, holes. I don't know.
Yep, they know.
Yeah.
They know what people are up to, and they know that us elder law attorneys are there to draw the fine line between making the state happy and trying to put our clients in a good position.
Audrey, did you have something?
So just just looping back for a second to the caregiver agreement, that doesn't become subject to that 5-year look back, does it? That can be implemented within the 5 years.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you can, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, that's what, that was.
If it was a gift, if you know, if somebody that was applying for Medicaid had made let's just say that your dad made an outright gift to you, not part of the caregiver contract.
Right.
We would
right.
hopefully that would be outside the 5 years. Hopefully that would have been more than 5 years.
Correct.
But yeah,
Correct.
the caregiver contract would be signed
Great,
6
great.
months prior to
Good.
Medicaid.
All right, good deal.
And the last thing I'm going to say, because I think this is probably a good time to wrap up, and I'm going to get going in a minute anyway. The last thing I was going to say, one thing to always keep in mind that is if we're getting close to somebody applying for Medicaid, prepay their final expenses. Make sure their cremation is paid for, their burial is paid for. You know, you can pay for all of that in advance. It's a totally legitimate expense. You need to make sure that it's done irrevocably. So you want to make sure that when you're working with a funeral director or a funeral home, you're doing it in a way where you cannot get the money back. If there's a way for, you know, the Medicaid applicant to undo that and get the money back, it's not going to be okay with Medicaid. But again, these expenses will have to be paid for anyway. So we want to make sure we pay for them in advance and not be in a situation where, oh no, dad was on Medicaid, dad passed away, he's got, you know, $1,200 left in his account. You know, now all those expenses fall on the family members. So, all right, that's my last thing I'll say. Thanks for all the questions today. I'm glad we filled the time with questions. Thanks for getting us started off, Audrey, with your questions. Margie, thank you. Alicia, hopefully, and Patricia, hopefully you got, and Pat, hopefully you got something out of this. And I will be back next month, like Pam said, on understanding Medicaid and how to protect assets legally. And I will let Pam take it home from here, but thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much, Matt. This was a really good
Thank you.
talk.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye, Matt. All right, that concludes our YMCA talk, or YES talk for the day. Thank you. And Matt, he's already off. Everyone's getting off. But like I said, the next talk is July 6th, 9:15. It's Wednesday. Feel free to sign up for that again. It's online. And then also our next talk is on Monday, June 13th. We're doing Why is my trainer talking about protein? So if anyone wants to jump in on that, we'll be doing that on Monday, June 13th. Thank you all so much.
Thank
and we'll
you.
see you soon.
Yeah. Thanks, Pam.
Thank you. Bye.